Good morning, YouTube people. I am. I don't know. What are you? I am that I am. You are that you are. I don't know. Is Can you say you are that you are versus I am that I am? I don't know. It's the same thing, right? I am that I am. So, why is it important to create a YouTube channel to teach people things? Uh, well, not really teaching. All you can do is share yourself, right? Because I mean, I could say, well, I'm a teacher, but at the same time, you're getting feedback and you're learning at the same time. So teachers learn just like everybody else learns. If you guys saw my presentation about the what was it, the fear of hunger, or no, the pain of hunger and evolution, watch that video and then you'll have, or at least parts of it, and then you'll understand more about this video. So, to begin with, this video is about belief and how beliefs create your reality. This is kind of a continuation of that. And this is actually kind of like the baseline of another presentation that I'm going to create for in a couple of weeks about that. So I encourage any of you that, as soon as I post that, please join that video because I love having discussions about that topic. And it's something that I have learned personally in the last, oh boy, I'd say month or two, about how I've started to realize more and more and more that there's nothing you can do to help anybody from an emotional standpoint. I mean, you can help people get opened up to receive energetic downloads, but if you aren't preparing yourself, that's your job, right? If you're not preparing yourself, then there's nothing I can do for you. All you can do is teach people practices and teach people how you view the state of reality and why it is. Why does it work that way? For one thing, you'll see so many videos about, the universe is a mirror. It's always mirroring back on you. Why is that? Because it's you. There isn't anything that isn't you. You're always staring into the eyes of yourself. I just saw a video about balancing the light and dark, light and shadow. So you are always the light. You're always the light of the world, and everything else is basically your shadow. So your ability to fall in love with everything else dictates how you feel about yourself. I had this conversation with my brother yesterday. So your understanding of that dictates your belief system. What do you believe? Belief comes from understanding, and understanding will create your intent. I was watching somebody, who was making a video about what one of the most powerful things in our lives are, which they thought was choice. Choice is, yeah, the power of choice is amazing, and being able to master yourself and how you choose things. But if your understanding isn't high enough, then the choices that you make will always pull you into conflict. Unless your belief and your understanding is of wholeness, then you'll always be in conflict with some part of the whole, if that makes sense. So, and this is one of the biggest pieces of understanding that I can give you right now, that the whole entire range of the book of knowledge comes from, is that the Father and I are one, just as you and I are one. Now, it's easy for me to say that, make that statement, but unless you understand how that works, then your belief system will generally be skewed, and you will fall into conflict with somebody or something at some time. What do I mean by that? So if everything comes from the Father, let's say this non-physical source of everything, then everything that you see is a vessel that is channeling source, not only channeling, but being created by source at the same time. And if we look at the evolutionary cycle of life, every vessel that we see across of evolution becomes a more complicated structure to move more of source energy, move more of light. So evolution is just becoming more of yourself. That's it. And when you recognize that, then the actions of other selves, parts of yourself, are only limited to how much they know about themselves. How can you be in conflict with yourself? And how can you judge something based on its own self-knowledge? That's always increasing until you become the self completely. And then once you get to that place and then you realize that everything is the self, then you are of one mind and body. There is nothing that is away from you. Good and evil fall away. Everything is good. I mean, how can you say that it's evil for a lion to go hunt and kill its prey? It's part of the natural evolutionary cycle of the self, right? So how can you say it's evil for somebody who is in conflict, a person who's in conflict with their environment, who hasn't come to this understanding yet? Because maybe they grew up in an environment that was in conflict with itself and it attacked them. And so they feel like they need to attack it to survive until they get to a higher state of awareness. Now you might say, well, that's not true. I can be nice all I want, but if someone attacks me and kills me, then what then? It's like, well, what makes you think that even matters? We're all immortal. If everything comes from source and you go back to source, this is just a vessel. I don't care about this. Everyone according to their own understanding. So you're never in conflict with anything if you understand that this is just a vessel that's just accessing this field of intelligence, a unified field of intelligence, I might add. The word unified is really important. So everybody's belief systems are born from their own understanding. Which means that your beliefs will kill this vessel or save it, depending on your belief, depending on how you're accessing the field. I was reading Elijah the other day, and or not Elijah, but 1 Kings. The story of Elijah is in 1 Kings, chapter 17, chapter 18. I encourage you guys to read that after I tell you the story. So Elijah, Moses, Jesus, the only 40-day fasters. And I remembered that Elijah, in a way, burned the bush, and so did Moses. Jesus burned the bush, too, in a different way. He pulled everybody into, if you really understand what happened there, he pushed everybody into so many karmic cycles that's why Rome fell in 70 AD. I mean, the whole place just self-destructed because they attacked someone whose intent was pure towards them. And the reason their intent was poor was because they hadn't purified themselves. Their intent, they were not of a whole mindset. They were not of one mind. A double-minded man is unstable in all his ways. Someone who's double-minded sees good and evil. They don't see a whole thing as whole. It's very hard to get somebody to understand that the belief in good and evil is what actually pulls them into conflict and that takes them out of the garden. There's nothing evil. It's not, just like I said before, there's nothing that's, it's not. It's things that are hungry and you become hungry to feed on your environment when you do not feel whole, right? It's that simple. I mean, that describes the whole evolutionary process of life. Until you get to wholeness, you move through different types of hunger until you are whole. Put it that way. Anyway, so the story of Elijah is interesting because so there's this guy named Ahab, right? And Ahab is hiding these priests in a cave who are worshiping Baal. They're Baal worshipers, and some messenger comes to Elijah, tells him about this, and so Elijah goes to Ahab, and he says, I see you're hiding these priests. I want to, because they'd moved away from worshiping Yahweh, the God of the Jews, or the time. It was a masculine. Yahweh is a masculine name of God, masculine aspect of God, God the Father. So he makes a deal with these Baal worshippers, and that's the part that I had forgot about. That's the most important part, and this is what he does. He talks to him. And he's like, I see that you guys have moved away from worshiping the ones that brought us out of Egypt, because this is in First Kings. This is after the Exodus. Baal, and then interestingly enough, Baal is synonymous with bill, right? Like dollar bill, worshiping materialism in some way. 450 Baal worshippers, 450 bill worshippers. So he makes a deal with them. He says, hey, look, let's make a sacrifice. I'll sacrifice to my God. You'll sacrifice to your God. And then whoever God shows up must be the real God, right? And they're like, sure. That sounds like a fair deal. And so they build he lets them build their altar first. They build an altar, and they cut up an oxen, and they put an oxen on there, and they build some wood, and then they pray to their God, hey, show us a sign, show us that you're there, and nothing happens. They keep praying and praying and praying, and then Elijah starts making fun of them, right? Oh, who's this son of Baal, right? Where's he's gonna show up? Where's the, are you guys worshiping to something that's illusionary? And they start getting upset, and so in their tradition, I guess this is the Baalites' tradition, they start cutting themselves. Very interesting that it should say that in Scripture, because you're mutilating yourself if you believe in something that is not real, right? So they start cutting themselves, and they start bleeding all over the place. And then Elijah says, he makes his altar. He puts a big pile of wood on there, and he cuts up an oxen, puts the oxen on top. And then he anoints the altar 3 times. He pours water on it 3 separate times until the thing is completely soaked. And the basin on the altar that's around the altar is filled with water. And then he prays to Yahweh, the Most High God. And boom, fire comes out of heaven and it consumes the whole thing. My God's real. So he takes the Baalites, call them Baalites, down to the river and kills them. He kills 450, executes 450 worshippers of Baal. Now, why is he able to do that? They gave power over to him under contract. Right? He got him into an agreement. Made him realize, hey, look, man, if what you guys are worshiping is real, that's fine. But if it's not, the source of you is forfeit. If it's not real, what do you do? Why are you worshiping it? The things that you worship, you give power over you, right? Or you're saying that it is you. That is your source, your God. God, if you are worshiping something, you're saying that that is your source. Now, why would you worship anything other than the source of all things? That's the question here, right? I mean, to say that anything is the source of all things, I mean, the source of all things is not going to be a thing. It's the source. When you recognize that that there is a source of all things, and that's why I concentrate so much on just looking at the state of reality. Everything comes from and goes back to one point. And it doesn't matter how far you look out or how far you look in, everything is in motion to show you that same relationship. Everything comes from and goes back to one point. So your biofield is built the way it is. Everything comes from and goes back to your heart. That is the source of you, and everything that goes back to there is you. So that masculine quality and feminine quality, you're providing and receiving energy. And anytime you create a imbalance in that, or a judgment in the mind to look at something else that is not, and see something else that is not you, now you've created a separation and a misalignment in the mind. And so your belief system will be a little bit skewed, right? You'll believe that something else could possibly harm you, or you could be possibly in conflict with something else. And it changes your intent, right? Now, your intent might be to manipulate that thing so that you think that it's serving you, but not realizing that manipulating that thing is actually causing you harm, because now you're going to become manipulated. Everything's a mirror. I was talking to Ken about this, or my brother. Hi, Ken, if you're watching this video. How intent is everything. Words don't mean shit. And, we were having a word battle because he was just talking about his birthday. I'm not going to go into that story. But intent is everything, right? And the only person that's responsible for, that you are responsible for, whose intent is you. I'm not responsible for anybody else's intent. Everyone's learning their own thing. I'm not responsible for the intent of a dog or the intent of a squirrel. Why would I be? They're going through their own process, just like everybody else. And once I started to realize, if you really, really, really realize this, the only thing that you can do to change someone's belief system and understanding is to witness it and educate. You can't force anybody to change their intent or change their understanding. That's why, meditation practices and all that stuff is so invaluable. It puts you in alignment with everything and everybody. And all you can do is, let's use social media, for example. And this is something that I've started to realize, that I always support in a way that tries to educate. So there's two energies there. There's always a supporting, like, I'm here for you. And then there's a cutting away. If you can feel that there's a way that you can educate in a way that will help someone come to a greater understanding of themselves, none of you. Don't give a shit about how they feel about me. Really don't. Don't give a fuck. 2 fucks, 3 fucks, however many fucks it takes to make sure that nobody cares about who I am, because it really doesn't matter. If I love you, then I don't care how you feel about me. The only thing that I care about is how you feel about yourself, right? To become of one mind. That's how you transcend and stop falling into conflict. Because if you care about what somebody thinks about you, you've ignored the fact that the only thing that matters is that how someone cares about themselves, because that's how they'll project into their environment. And once you completely accept yourself for the way you are, then that person will accept everybody else as well. Come into a higher state and understand that everything is one, everything is whole. And then it becomes a lot easier to love the little beasties, because they're just growing. I was talking to you, Donna. I'm assuming you're watching this video, about how Maleficent calls that girl in that movie her beastie. She falls in love with her beastie. And so eventually you fall in love with everything, because it doesn't matter where it's at. It's slowly learning about itself. And then you're holding heaven and hell in the balance. The only thing that you're ever responsible for is your own understanding, which leads to your intent and your belief system. Because your beliefs and what you understand will always be the source of your intent. So how do you guys feel today? How do you guys? I made this video on purpose because I wanted it. That's a lot of what I'm covering in the chapter that I'm writing, and ultimately that becomes that's the deeper knowledge that will free you, so that your intent is always pure towards the people around you. Never trying to control, only trying to educate, and eventually, that is actually what controls reality. And if you really want, all of us have the power to do things. For example, that's why black magic works in the way it does, right? And that's why Elijah was able to do what he did. Because if somebody believed in something that wasn't true, it gave him power over them. Everything in the evolutionary record is about things growing, but they grow in consciousness. And the more conscious being is given power over the lesser conscious being. Think of it that way. Now, this gives you a little bit different perspective on the new movie Dune 2 at the same time. Is Paul Atreides doing something bad by becoming more conscious and seeing a way through what he was doing? I don't know. I don't see it as bad. It's interesting that he said, "Oh, we're Harkonnens now. The way we survive is to become Harkonnen," and the Harkonnens killed their family. Now, obviously, I'm not going to start a killing spree, but if you get people under contract under a false illusion, something you can put them in a state where it forces them to realize that they're living in an illusion, right? Because that's what helps them grow. There's nothing I can do for you but escalate karma, which is actually what's happening right now. As more information, as more light goes through the system, as we're getting closer to the veil, or that shift between the negative polarity and the positive polarity in the galaxy, it forces karmic cycles to happen much quicker. Right? So like if you're attacking your environment, you're attacking yourself. So you're killing yourself much faster energetically if you're attacking your environment. As we get closer to that shift. Just state it the way it is, right? And when you put yourself in alignment and educate people to that fact, then you're in alignment, because you're helping the whole become more self-aware. It's like, well, you guys can feed on each other all you want, but it's going to be a lot harder here pretty soon. Much more difficult, right? There's a reason why famines happen, and it's not because, I guess it is, right, in a way. My God is a vengeful God. But because you always have to bring everything in balance. Everything seeks balance. Everything. Simple electrical circuit is always seeking balance. And if it creates too big of a charge, it destroys itself. First lesson you see when you're learning about generators is the higher the voltage, or the higher potential between two things, the faster it kills itself. In a way, you could say that by enlightening yourself, and if you get to a certain degree of enlightenment, and you create that big of a charge, you're destroying yourself much quicker, because the rest of the thing that isn't, you're creating a larger and larger difference in potential, and then it's going to flash over. That's actually Jesus' story when you think about it. He created such a difference in potential between him and the people around him. I mean, he was able to just manifest anything because he had to line himself with Source, saw the whole picture, and so it, created a sacrifice, flashed over, boom. That event flashed over, but it also flashed over across the whole, and then everything was gone in 70 AD. Simple electrical circuit. Love you guys. Have a wonderful day. Let's pull an oracle card. Let's see what the oracles have to say. Your beliefs dictate your own reality. Let's just do this one. Celebration. I got a celebration card. I don't think I've ever pulled a celebration card. That's pretty cool. Love you guys. Have a wonderful day. I'm not going to make videos every day. This is an important video. You know, if you understand these concepts, the only thing you're ever doing is trying to fix yourself. So if it feels like you're ever in conflict with somebody, and I personally went through this weekend, someone was able to trigger me. I hadn't been triggered in a long time. And I realized it's like, okay, now you have to examine why I was triggered. And then it took me about 10 minutes, and then I got to a place where I'm okay with that person acting that way. But I'm going to educate the other person that they're interacting with to educate them why I got triggered and why I don't care now. I don't care. And it was like you keep getting triggered in ways that forces you to learn about yourself and to care less and less about what other people do. The only thing you can do is do the things for yourself that you need to do for yourself to make sure that you're following your best intent for the whole and to stay in a wholesome mindset. Love you guys. Be well, live long and prosper.